This is Gemara and Yoma Daf Chof Beis. All the learning for this month, the month of Iyar, should be a tremendous chos refuah shlema of Rivka Bas Basheva, as well Naftali Spiv and Michal Esther, sponsored generously by close friends of the Daf for the month of Ani Hashem Reifecha. The learning of the Yitar Chabura should really be a tremendous chos refuah shlema, as well as today's share has been sponsored as a chos refuah shlema for Sarah Baskela. We keep on hearing Baruch Hashem, slow and steady good news, and we're hoping very soon she'll be home from the hospital. Finally, one more day we'd like to sponsor as a day of Nechama, day of Refuah, day of Schos Elid Neshama for all the Chaylim and those who unfortunately were nifter this past week in Meiron. And finally, the rest of our Chaylim, Emmanuel Vega Chaim Esar Shalom Simon Reizil Zarbas Ganandli Basim As Chaysei Yisrael Mendel the president of Shavlei Shama Zami Shavei Shechan Foldam Shmuel Ben Tehila Dinim Ben Chan Rizim Chay Basmin Li Baruch Batam Musa Din Edom Shem Mendel Sim Chatavi Ben Avigai Fashes Fim Fei Dvern Chalazion As Lehuva Ben Achmenda Ben Toba Beisai Shachali Yisrael Zos Chashidach Pratalea Basita. And actually, the one of the Shidduchim that we daven for Menachem Mendel Ben Elisheva, his vart is today, Monday's daf, and the learning should be as close that the shidduch should be oile yafeh. We go and we begin the second parak of Masechtas Yoma. Barishayna says the Mishnah in the beginning, Kol Mishareitza Litrei Mesem Mizbeach. Anyone who wanted the wonderful job to separate the ash from the Mizbeach, Tairim, he would grab it, no problem. We'll see how they did this. And when there were many kohanim, rotzim, they would run. They would run, and they would run up the ramp. It's a kavesh. We'll hopefully get it right this time. Not a kavesh. That's the sheep. They would run up the ramp of the mizbeach kol hakadim as chaveiro barba amos. Whoever was first, fastest, within the top 4 amos, like we'll see today, zacha, he gets the merit to remove the ash from the mizbeach. V'maya shneim shavim. Let's say 2 kohanim, boom, tie. What do we do now? Samemona, the kohen that's appointed, Omer lehem itzbiu. He would say it's time for a lottery. Put out a finger. Umahein. Maitziim, what would they put out? Achas Ishtayim, everyone would put out 1 or 2 fingers. Vein Maitziim Agadol, they wouldn't let them put out the thumb. And then they would do a lottery. Mikdash, they would not let them put out the thumb. I'm sorry. Ve'in Motzin Agadol b'Mikdash. Says the Gemara story. Ma'aseh shayesh shneim shavim. One time 2 of them were first. Ve'ratzim adam hakavesh. They're running up the ramp. V'dachav echad chaveiro, and he throws him off the ramp of the mizbeach. As chaveiro v'navav v'nishbarakli, he breaks his leg. V'kiven sharau bez din shebe'in lidei sakana. We'll see more about today. They saw this is not cool. Kehanim are being a little overzealous. Kanim is the reason they're running up the ramp. They're throwing people getting hurt. His skinush le'yitarmin is mizbeach elubeh. They just did a raffle right away. Arba payasles havishan. There are 4 raffles. Zeu payis arishain, and this is the first payis. Just to point out, which we're not going to have a time to talk about right now, this is seemingly also referring. Actually, it's a question if this whole parak is referring to Yom Kippur or a regular day, and this is dependent upon a machlekes, which we've mentioned in the past. Does the kohen gadol do everything on Yom Kippur, all the avodas, including the removal of the ash, or no, you'll need to do the special avodas? This could have been done by anyone else, and that will depend. One of the big rayas they bring is, what's this whole parak doing here if it didn't have to be done by a kohen gadol? Why is it stuck here, smack in the middle of Yoma, middle of the avodah, which would make it sound like it could be done by anyone, even on Yom Kippur. Says the Gemara, will show some pictures of this pious of the lottery in a moment, but let's just get into things. Says the Gemara, my time. What's the reason in the beginning they didn't create a lottery? It says in the beginning they used to fight and run up the ramp. Then they created this invention. Why didn't they right away do a payasa, do a lottery? Answers the Gemara, you know why? This is a nighttime avoid, they're removing the ash. They didn't think the Gehanim, unfortunately, would be machshav and find it important. They weren't going to come. They didn't think it was a big deal. They're not going to fight. But then, given the chazu, the kasu, v'asu, the sakana, Baruch Hashem, they were coming. They wanted to do zavaida, but then it became a sakana. So takina le payasa, they made up hayis. They made the lottery. Says the Gemara, 1 second. Nice answer, but doesn't fit. The burning of the fats in the limbs, that's also a nighttime avodah. And yet we find the kinarabana payasa. There's a lottery for that. Answers the Gemara, teretz number 1, Seif Avodah Diyamamahi. When it comes to burning of the last of the flame, the limbs and the fats, that was at the end of the day. It's true it was at night, but it was at the end of the day. So therefore the Kehanim still found it to be important. Hainami, ask me 1 second. If that was at the end of the day, and therefore the Kehanim felt it to be chashiv because it's sort of almost part of the day, so this one is the beginning of the day. What's the difference? Domer Rav Yochanan, as Rav Yochanan taught us, Kiddush Yadav l'Tshuma Zadashin, l'Machar Yitzchak l'Kadish, Shekvar Kiddush b'Tchiz Avoda. If a Kohen did Kiddush Yadayim v'Raglayim, he put his hands on the kiyar, he made himself tar, and then he did the Avoda of removal of the ash. Did he have to again do it after that Avoda? Says Rav Yochanan, no. It's the beginning of the day. So if we see it's the beginning of the day, why don't we always assume that they were going to be machshavit? Answers the Gemara, Ema, you know why? Shekvar Kiddush b'Tchiz Avoda. No, that's not what Rav Yochanan meant. Rav Yochanan just meant in the event that they already did it, then it's okay. But it's not necessarily a rayo that the removal of the ash is considered the beginning of the avodah. Teretz number 1. Teretz number 2, Iked Yamri, Meikaris Avar, Tudalinu Teretz. In the beginning, Chazal thought, Kivadika Oine Sheina, Layasu. It's the first avodah. It's early in the morning. They didn't think the Kanim were going to make it there. They're going to still be sleeping. Then, Kivan the Chazu Dasu Vikasli, they Sekana. Then they saw, wait, the Kehanim are showing up, Baruch Hashem, and it's coming to Zakana. So Tekino the Rabbanan Bayasa, the Rabbanan created a bias in order to, it's not working, in order to alleviate the fights to who removed the ash. Says the Gemara, 1 second. Again, what was the thought process? We just answered, since they had to remove the ash first thing in the morning, so they said, the Kehanim are going to sleep in. Says the Gemara, 1 second. I don't understand. When it comes to the burning of the fats and the limbs, it's also middle of the night, so maybe the Kehanim are going to sleep. Answers the Gemara, shiny migno me mekam, a big yisoid. Says the Gemara, there's a big difference. Sleeping is different than getting up. To stay awake later at night, that's possible. To burn the fats and the limbs throughout the night, that they did. But to get up in the morning, that's much more difficult, and that's the reason why they didn't think the Kehanim would show up. Says the Gemara, says the Gemara, you just told me that the reason that they made a lottery for the separation of the ashes was because they were running, they were fighting, and therefore they made a lottery based on it. But we find in a different Mishnah, a different reason. The Tanya, we learned in a Brisa, and the Kohen that merited the removal of the ash, he also was able to arrange the wood, and the 2 blocks of wood. So what do we see? We see that the Kehanim would certainly want to remove the ash because there was a bonus. It wasn't just removal of the ash. You also got the good job of putting the wood there and the job of the Gizei Eitzim. So says the Gemara, our Mishnah seems to say the opposite, that they only gave the lottery later. From here it seems it was much earlier. It sounds like there was a lottery always. Answers the Gemara, Ravashi shtei tekanas avai. There were 2 stages in history. First they thought the Kehanim are not going to come. Why? Because it's early in the night. Even the Chazu, the Kasu, they saw they were coming. They said Kana. Therefore Tekinale Bayasa. Even the Kinale Bayasa. Then once they made a lottery, what happened? It's a lottery. Layasu. They stopped coming. Again, stage number 1, the Chazal thought no one's going to show up. It's early in the morning. Baruch Hashem, Kayanim proved to be better. They came, and then they were fighting. Okay, so they said, you know what? We're going to make a lottery. Kind of said, you're making a lottery? I'm out of here. There's no reason for this. No one came. So then they said, it's because they said, who says we're going to win the lottery? So they made another takanalo. So that they would want to be involved in the lottery. And that was the way that they did this wonderful pious, like you see in front of you. Kehanim picking up their fingers, they would go around, as we'll see more in a few moments. Cain would call it a number, and then he would go around counting their fingers to figure out who won this merit. Says the Gemara, we are 2 lines before the white lines at the bottom of Chav Beis Amid Aleph. So we just said when there were many Kehanim, they would throw out a number, they would hold up their fingers, they would count. It's Pashat to me. The following didn't. It said in the Mishnah, Arba Amos. The Ara Loi. Says Rav Papa. It said when they were running, when they got to the top four, it said when they got within 4 amos, that kohen was zeicha. Which 4 amos? Says Rav Papa. It's arba amos to ara, the bottom 4 amos lie. That's certainly not what the Mishnah means. Why? Ratzin va'olim bekevish tanan. It says they ran and they went up. You went up means it's not the bottom. Says the Gemara, okay, fine. It's also now referring to the first 4 amos on the ramp. Ratzin va'oilin bekavish. It was they went up the ramp tanan. Whoever came there first. It doesn't mean whoever's on the middle of the ramp. Why not? Because it's impossible to know which part. It's not a specified area. So Pshit Ali says Rav Papa, the Gabe Mizech Tanan, referring to the top 4 amos, that's where they go to, and that's where they zeicha of the removal of the ash. But now Rav Papa has a beautiful question, which we need a picture for, which we'll show in a moment. Arba amos amru b'hadei. Amma Yisoid, Va'ama Soiviv. When we say 4 amos, does that include the 4 amos, the Amma of the Yisoid, and the Amma of the Soiviv? Oidilma bar me Amma Yisoid, Va'ama Yisoiviv, says the Gemara, Teku. Let's get a beautiful picture to make this work. So first of all, here you see the kohen being putting together the wood, the big logs, the maracha. Here's the other, the gizrei eitzim, which we saw back in Shkolim, the 2 blocks of wood. And here you see the picture that we need. Says the Gemara, it's for sure referring to the top 4 amos, as you see in the colored area of this picture. Those are the 4 amos. So when you get there, you're zeicha to remove the ash. But the Gemara wants to know, does it include the area of the Yisoid and the Soiviv? So let's see here. This picture is a little bit better. As you see in this picture, this is the Mizbeach. You see it started off 32 amos, then it went up to 30 amos because there was an amma on each side. That was the Yisoid, the base around, which we know is in all 4 sides. It's 2.5. 2 and a bit sides, then it went up to 28, and that was where the Soiviv was in the middle. So basically, the ramp, when the ramp went onto the Mizbeach, the ramp, as you see here in this picture, mamish beautifully, when the ramp went on the Mizbeach, the 32 amos of the ramp were 2 amos, one on the side over here, and one on the Soiviv over there. The ramp went on top of it. So now the Gemara's question is, when we say 4 amos, is it mamish the top 4 amos of the ramp, as you see in the left side over here, or no? It does not include the side and the Soiviv, and therefore you need 2 amos lower, and that's the 4 amos of the ramp that we're talking about. Now you'll understand this picture a little bit better. Is it the top, or no? Is it a little bit lower to account for the Yisayid and the Soiviv? That was Rav Papa's fundamental kasha, in which he ends off, Teku. Says the Gemara 2 lines down, Chav Beis Amid Beis. So he said, if their 2 people are equal, what is the Mamayna? The pointed kohen, he says, stick out your finger. And everyone would stick out 1 finger or 2 fingers, they'd go around counting to the number. Which number? He would call it a number. Let's say there was about 7 kohen, he would say 35. And then everyone he would pick up a finger. The Memuna would go and take off one of their hats, start by him. We'll see the process more and go around and count. Says the Gemara, before we get involved in that, but Tanim learned in the Mishnah, and they take out their fingers, Laminian to count. Asks the Gemara, why? Why their fingers? Let's just count them. What's he count their fingers? Just count their heads. You're not allowed to count Klal Yisrael, even for a mitzvah. Now, before we continue, what's the source of this? Everyone knows, the source is Machzeh Shekel. They gave a shekel to count. We're about to see in the Gemara many attempts at sources, and none of them in the Machzeh Shekel. The simplest answer is because nowhere do we know that the din by Machzeh Shekel is a din for future generations. Maybe that's just how Moshe Rabbeinu had to do it, but maybe nowadays there's no problem counting. So the Gemara is looking for a source that there's an Isser, it's forbidden to count people by their heads. Says the Gemara, as it says in the Torah, it says by Shaul HaMelech, he counted through their pottery shards. So we see a raya that the way you're supposed to count is not by them, but by the shards. So Maskla Rav Ashi, 1 second. How do you know that it means he counted by the shards that all the soldiers were holding? Well, maybe Mizbach is a place of a place. It's a town. Says the Gemara, as the Torah teaches us, as the Pasuk, Navi says that he went through the place called bezek. So how do you know this is a source that you're not allowed to count? New source, and Shalom El count them by their sheep. So you see a makar, you don't count by the people. Anyone who counts, you're over in a negative commandment. Shnemar, Klal Yisrael is like the sand in the sea, which cannot be counted. He argues and he says, not just one lav, two lavim. Two words, Pasuk says you cannot measure nor count. Says Rav Nachman Yitzchak, there's two lavim for counting people. Amar Hashmo bar Nachmani, Rav Yonasan Rami. Rav Yonasan asks as a contradiction. We're like the sea, the sand, we cannot be counted. It says, which cannot be measured and counted, which sounds like they have a number, whereas the first one sounds like that it is an impossible number. We have a stira. The opposite. The first pasuk says that we're like the sand of the sea, which sounds like there is a number. It's just a tremendous number. The second pasuk says that no, you can't count them. It sounds like it's an impossible. There's no actual number. Answers the Gemara like Kasha comes that's when we're unlimited. Comes on then we have a limit. Rabbi Aimer Yosi ben Dustoi like Kasha different teretz. Adam Shamayim. We cannot be counted by humans, but we can be counted by God. When a person becomes a parnes, he becomes a point of people, a power of position, misasher, he becomes wealthy. What's the raya? By Shaul, we just saw the pasuk meikar ksiva ifkedim bebezek. First Shaul is counting them by the pottery shards, and then he's counting them by the sheep. Obviously, there were lots of sheep, so we see that Shaul Melech became wealthy after receiving a position of power. Says the Gemara, what's the raya? Maybe it was Shaul's Melech. Maybe it was his personal sheep. Imkain answers the Gemara. What would the chiddush be? Now, we're going to go on a bit of a lengthy digression, we'll call it, about Shaul HaMelech once we're discussing him. Says the Gemara, 3 lines before the medium-sized lines, Vayarev Banachal. It says in the Torah that Shaul fought in the valley, Amar Ramani Al Iske Nachal. He fought about the items concerning the valley, which refers to Egla Arufa. Explains the Gemara, go and kill Amalek. Amar, what did Shaul Melech respond? What's the halacha of one person in the town dies? Then you have to bring an egla arufa, decapitate the head. Said Shaul, I can't kill all these people. What sins does a person do? And if the adult sinned, these are the different rationales, whether they're one rationale or not. This is what Shaul HaMelech basically went along and didn't want to kill out. Do what God said. Hashem said, kill all the adults, children, animals, everything of Amalek. Shaul HaMelech didn't. As we know, he left Agag, which we'll see in a moment, which unfortunately turned out disastrous, which is where Haman came from. So what happened? Yatza Baskal went out of Amr Lion, says to Shaul HaMelech, Alti Sadik Arbe, don't be such a Sadik. When I tell you what to do, you listen. And now the flip side of Shaul HaMelech, in a different story, told Dayik, go around and kill all the Kehanim, because David HaMelech was hiding in that city of Noiv Yer HaKehanim. So Shaul HaMelech made a commandment to kill all of them. Don't be overly Russia. Now is not the time to be killing everyone. Amar Avuna, says the Gemara, says the Gemara, when one is loy chaliv loy margish, he doesn't. He wants to be spared. He doesn't want sickness and he doesn't want worry. Gavra demari sa'aye, whose help is from Hashem. Says the Gemara, what does that mean? We'll explain in a moment. Shaul ba'achas also loy dav b'shtayim loy also loy. Says the Gemara, Shaul HaMelech did one aveira. And also lie, and he got paid. He got nailed for it. He got punished. David v'shtayim, but David the 2 averos lie also lie. Again, the Gemara proving that when someone has siyayei demara, someone has the help of heaven, someone believes in God at a high level. Obviously, even his aveiros are not held against him. Now we go through Shaul ba'achas ma'i. What was the aveir of Shaul HaMelech? Maisa, the Agag, like we just said a moment ago, the story of Agag, he didn't kill Agag, the king of the Amalekim, which he was supposed to. He asked the Gemara 1 second, Maisa, like we just said a second ago. What about the other story where he went to kill out all the Kahanim in Noiv? Maisa Agag says, no, it's only referring to the story with Agag. Nichanti ki amalachti as a shal. No, we says about the story with Agag, Hashem says, Nichanti, I regret that I made Shaul king, meaning that's what he got punished for, not for the other Aveir that he did. Lamelech. David B'Shtayim, David Melech did 2 Aveiros. Mind you, to Uriah Udasata. He did the Aveira with Uriah Chiti, and did the Aveira when he made a counting of Klal Yisrael. Asked the Gemara what everyone's wanting, but he can have him Ma'aseh to Bathsheba. What happened to the story with Bathsheba? Says the Gemara, Hasami Parminei. Shtavan HaMelech got paid back for it. We're talking about Aveiros, they didn't get paid back. They get paid back in the next world. But for the Ma'aseh with Bathsheba, David HaMelech got paid back for it. The not paid back, got punished, I'm sorry. The Chsev, as the Pasuk says, a terrible punishment. But Yishalem, he's going to pay 4-fold. Arbatayim. What were the 4 punishments David HaMelech got? Yeled, that a boy died. Amnon was killed. Tamar was forcefully had relations. Avshalom, and Avshalom was killed. So once David was punished, that's why it's not included in the count that we just said. Says the Gemara 1 second. But Asanami Parmine. But when David HaMelech counted Klal Yisrael, we also find in the Navi that David HaMelech got a punishment. V'yitan Hashem davar that Hashem gave Dever, a pestilence, until that time. So what do we see? We see even though Hashem paid them back, they got punished, we still include that one. Answers the Gemara, there David HaMelech didn't get nailed in his body. That's why it's counted. Ask the Gemara 1 second. The story with Bathsheba, we said 4 punishments, but none of them were in the body of David HaMelech. Answers the Gemara, no, it's not true. In truth, David HaMelech did get paid back in his body. The Amar Rav Yudah Amar Rav Shisha Chadashim Mitzara David, for 6 months David HaMelech had Saras Uparshu Emenu Sanhedrin, and Sanhedrin separated from him, and Nistalke Emenu Shechina, and the Shechina separated from him. A terrible punishment. As the pasuk says, Yeshuvu li Yirechav Yoidei Dvaisecha. The pasuk says, return to me those who fear me and those who know the Eidos. Uksev, and a different pasuk says with regard to the Shechina leaving David HaMelech, Hashiva li Sasa Yishecha, that restored to me the salsa and the rejoice of your Yishecha. Ask the Gemara, okay? V'amarav, a different Aveira. Kibol David l'Rosh Hara. Why isn't David HaMelech being counted that he got Lashon, that David HaMelech listened to Lashon Hara? Answers the Gemara, no, it's Machlokes, that's Rav. But Kishmol, Damar like you, David Lashon Hara. He didn't accept Lashon Hara. Ask the Gemara, Lam Nami, Damar Kibul, David Lashon Hara. Are you parimine? Even according to Rav, that David HaMelech accepted Lashon Hara, but he got punished. Damar Rav Yudah Amar Rav, V'shasha Amar like David Mivi Baishes, when David HaMelech said to Mivi Baishes, Marti Atav, Itziva Techalki. I'm sorry. I declare, Ata, you, Vitziva, and Siva, Techalku as Asada, you should split up the field. Yata Baskal, V'amra, Lai, Rechavam, V'yiravam, Yechalku as Amalchos. Rechavam and Yiravam are going to split up your kingdom, David HaMelech. So we see that David did get punished for accepting Lashon Hara. It says the Gemara, so that's another reason, even according to Rav, why the Avira of Lashon Hara was not included, because David HaMelech already got punished. And it says the Gemara, a few more stories about Shaul HaMelech. Ben Shana Shaul HaMelech was 1 year old when he was king. Amar Rav Huna Kid Ben Shana, he was like a 1-year-old. What does that mean? First pshat, Shleitam Tam Chait, he didn't do Averis. Masler Amnachmer Yitzavim Kid Ben Shana Shemalach Betidu B'tzayah, the exact opposite. Maybe it means he's like a 1-year-old that he's covered in filth and excrement. He made all over himself. It says the Gemara, Viu le the Rav Nachman siyuta bechelmei, the malachim of Chavala, the malachim that could destroy, were shown to Rav Nachman in his dream. And Amar, they said, Anesi lechem atzamais, you Anesi lechem atzmais Shaul ben Kish. They said you spoke too much about Shaul ben Kish. Hadar Chazeh, then he saw again malachim in his dreams. Siyuta bechelma, these terrible malachim in his dreams. And Amar, they said, Anesi lechem atzmais Shaul ben Kish, you have spoken excessively about Shaul ben Kish. the terrible thing that Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, when he asked that Shaul, what do you mean? He's like a 1-year-old that he's full and filthy. The Malachim came to tell him off for saying such a terrible thing about Shaul HaMelech. One more says the Gemara, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel Mimneima. We're 6 lines from the bottom. Lo nimshcha malchus beis Shaul. What's the reason that the kingdom of Shaul did not continue? Mimnei shlo hayu bam shom daifi, because they didn't have any flaw, they didn't have any problems, any yichus issues. Interesting. Don't appoint someone of a position of power. Ella. You want to have him bring a box of shratzim. Why? Behind him. If he gets too haughty, we tell him, look behind you. We tell him, don't be so haughty, you have a bad lineage. So Shaul HaMelech, because he didn't have that problem, that was the reason why he did not have his kingdom endure. And we'll pick up in Mirz Hashem from Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, continuing discussing a bit about Shaul in tomorrow's daf.